Hi, everybody. It's Mike from Hear the Watchman. Now, here we are on the second episode of Money Mondays. We're happy to come to you. I have pre-recorded this show. I'm just going to be honest and tell you that. Why? Because on this particular Monday, I am somewhere in an undisclosed location in the mountains of Alaska. Most likely in Denali Park somewhere, but who knows? Why am I up here? Nothing to do with Hear the Watchman. Nothing to do with Bigfoot. I'm just up here enjoying myself and having a vacation with my lovely wife. That's it. Don't read anything else into it. That's the only reason we're in Alaska. But today on the show, on Money Monday, I have a dear friend of mine, a guy that I met way back when, way back when we started Hear the Watchman. He is an author. He has a radio show, a very popular network radio show. He is a young father, new father. He has a beautiful little boy. First, he has a beautiful wife. Then he has a beautiful little boy. And I guess they have another one on the way. I was fortunate enough, blessed enough to go to their wedding. Just watched this relationship and this family grow in Christ. It's just been wonderful. But he's also a speaker, and he talks quite a bit about money. He has an organization called the Purple Monkey Garage, where he works with people to free them from the chains that bind them of being employed by someone else. It is, of course, none other than Mr. Josh Tolley. Josh, thank you so much for joining us.
Mike, always great to talk to you, brother. It is a blast. And you talked about that growing family. When I did the first Hear the Watchman, I was single. Then I was engaged. Then I was married. Then she was pregnant. Now we're having a baby. Like every step of the way, there's a Hear the Watchman. It's been absolutely amazing. Maybe you're the cause of all this.
I don't know. But you guys might fit in fine for the Saturday show, as you and I talked about off air. Here at Hear the Watchman, we are going to do something that everyone else seems to be absolutely afraid to do. We're going to talk about two things. I mean, we can talk about the Nephilim. We can talk about the apocalypse. We can talk about all this horrible stuff that could happen. Aliens coming down. We can talk about all that. But we can't talk about money, and we can't talk about relationships, and we certainly can't talk about sex. But here at Hear the Watchman, we're going to do that. Mondays is going to be all about money and how you learn to be a good steward of your money. And on Saturdays, we're going to talk about Christian relationships, how to deal with the things that come up, not just between you and your spouse or you and your girlfriend or your girlfriend and your boyfriend. We're never, ever going to talk about your boyfriend and your boyfriend or your girlfriend and your girlfriend. But we're also going to talk about things that go on within the family. What happens when your kids are having trouble? Yeah. We don't talk about it. Let's put that under the table, because if my kids are having problems, that means I'm not a good Christian. Malarkey. We're going to deal with all that. But today is Money Monday with Josh. And Josh, you have dedicated your life to helping free people. We know as we try to teach people to be good stewards of their money, we know two things. One, we know debt is not good. I mean, Gordon Gekko used to say, debt is good. No, debt is not good. Leverage is bad. When you borrow money from someone, you are a slave to the person that you borrow money from. Doesn't mean that sometimes you have to borrow some money in the short term, but you got to pay it off. The other is working for someone else. If you work for someone else, and we understand everybody thinks, or not everybody, but most people think that if I get a job and I work 9 to 5 for the next 40 years, and I put away $20 a week in savings, and I put away some money in my IRA, and then, of course, my company will give me a retirement plan, of course, that will be protected, and of course it'll be there when the time comes that I need it. Enron, General Electric, but that's what we think. But that's also becoming a slave, and Josh has worked hard. Josh, Talk to us about your philosophy and what you see as being a good steward of your money and providing for your family.
Sure, absolutely. So my basic belief is free enterprise has always been and will always be the fuel for freedom. It is the way that God teaches us to make money. And in the Christian world, what has happened is there's two schools of thought that has kind of dominated the I guess the Christian marketplace. On one side, you have prosperity gospel, the whole, name it, claim it, give me $700, buy a magic handkerchief, spin around 7 times, poof, you're a millionaire. And then on the other side is the poverty gospel, where money's not important, don't worry about it, just make sure you give 10% before you walk out the door. And in between is the actual gospel, but that's the part that we all ignore. And the Bible says that the Bible is for all teaching, all instruction. But for some reason, we don't use it for what we do 40 to 50 hours a week. And I think that's really sick and sad because the Bible has a lot to say about money. As a matter of fact, the Bible talks more about money than it does heaven. And yet, here we are in a world where more Christians are declaring bankruptcies than secular people. 7,000 churches a year get foreclosed on. You mentioned that the debtor is slave to the lender. It's kind of interesting that 7,000 churches a year in the United States get foreclosed on. Wait a second. Your book told you don't get in this position. How did you get foreclosed on? Including the Crystal Cathedral years ago.
That's right.
It's now been sold to the Catholics, but they went bankrupt. They went defunct. So we really have been messed up in this entire spectrum of Christianity and money. And you bring up employment. Employment, man, long-term employment is a curse. Kind of like long-term debt. You're right. I mean, if you need a quick 24-month loan to buy some equipment for your business, okay, whatever. If you're 17 years old and you need a job to make some money, cool, whatever. But as long-term solutions, they are absolutely deplorable. And the Bible tells us there's 4 types of people. There's masters, laborers, servants, and slaves. The master is the rich guy on the top of the hill. The slave is captive. He doesn't have an option. But that leaves us with 2, servants and laborers. Well, the book of Matthew tells us we cannot be servants to God and money. Not that it's a sin, not that it's a na-na-na-boo-boo. We can't. It's impossible. Because you'll either love one, hate the other, hate one, love the other. So we have to really look then, what is a servant to money? And ignorantly, a lot of people think a servant to money is the rich guy. Nope, not the case at all. A servant in biblical times worked a 10 to 12-hour day. Uh-oh. A servant in biblical times had to start that day when the boss said so. What time do you have to be to work? The servant in biblical times didn't finish his day until the boss said he could go home. What time do you get to go home? And if the servant saved up enough money, he could buy his freedom. Today we call that retirement. Oh, honey, if we could just save up enough money, I could quit. I could leave. A servant, if he loved his master, could go to the city gate, put an awl through his ear, take his master's mark, and be his for life. Today we call that tenure and pension. Through employment, we are serving money. And a lot of Christians are like, well, I'm not serving money. Money's not important to me. You lie. If you are going to work 30, 40 hours a week for money, then money is what you're serving, period. And this idea that, well, money's not important to me, I don't have a lot of money. What servant had a lot? Like, we kind of ignorantly think, well, people with a lot of money are servants to money. No, it's the people who have to leave their children. It's the people who have to drive 40 minutes in rush hour traffic. It's the people who would rather be with their parents as they're aging, who leave all the stuff that's important to go get money. They're the ones literally serving money. It's the ones where if a water pump goes out on the car, the entire family screeches to a halt. That's serving money. That's what we have to stop. The Bible says don't do that. Instead, there's that other category called laborers. Laborers are what today is called an entrepreneur. And you might think, well, isn't a laborer an employee? Nope, the servant's the employee. Laborers are the entrepreneurs. And Jesus even uses it as an example. You have the two dudes out in the field. These other two dudes come in and say, hey, you need more work, and they negotiate the wage. And the first two dudes are like, wait a second, why are they getting the same thing we're getting? And it's an analogy to show heaven. He who comes to the Father late in life still gets the same heavenly reward as the person who comes early. Totally great analogy. I get it. But the teaching point to that is he used entrepreneurship to do it. Entrepreneurship said, you need to have that field worked on. Great. I'll do it for 100 pieces of silver, and when it's done, I'm out of here. I'm not servant to you. I don't have to come back tomorrow at 8:30 a.m. I'm getting paid for a job. And the person who's contracting that just wants the job done. Now, the entrepreneur, once it's done, he got to set the rate. He got to set the time. He could go to the Sea of Galilee, or he could go to Alaska. And if he had a skill set that he could use that skill set there and make money again. The laborer, the entrepreneur, is free to use God's blessings, whereas the servants, as in the employees, actually limit God in their life by choice. You have a lot of employees that say really silly things like, oh, well, I hope God blesses me in this job. You have to be kind of careful with that, because in a lot of these cases, to bless you in your job means he has to bless somebody else in their sin, which is why a lot of prayers go unanswered in employment circles, because they don't understand it. And what was really interesting, you guys actually, I talk about Hear the Watchmen in an example. A couple Hear the Watchmen's ago, we did a marriage panel, and me and Brittany were on it, and everybody's doing this marriage panel, and then I pointed out something. Everybody on this panel that's been picked because they have a good marriage, all of them are entrepreneurs. It's not a coincidence that the divorce rate of entrepreneurs is extremely low. It's not a coincidence that the teen pregnancy rates and the drug use rates are lower in entrepreneur homes. There's reasons for that, but I've been talking way too much.
Well, no, I think you're dead on there, Josh. I mean, if you look at it, I mean, when you're an entrepreneur, when you're someone who, when you wake up in the morning, now here's a classic that I get. Mike, you've been employed, you've been self-employed for the majority of your life. And I'm like, because I couldn't find anybody who would hire me, thank God. But you have been self-employed all your life. What a wonderful gift. I mean, you can sleep in the morning, you can do this, you can do that. Yeah, sure, I could. But you know what? The fact that I don't have to be at my desk at any given time makes me wake up in the morning excited. I wake up at like 5:36 in the morning, excited to get out of bed and to get down to my desk and to start doing things. Now, I'm fortunate now that I get to serve Jesus. I'm fortunate now that we have a ministry, and that is what we do. We no longer, fortunately, we don't have to really work that much for a living anymore. We do still have to earn money, as everyone should and should do their entire lives, in my opinion. But, it's not a burden. It's not a burden. Now, Josh, we're going to get some people who are going to say, oh, yeah, fine. But you know what? I can't do that. I mean, I've got bills to pay. I've got a house. I got kids in college. Guess what, folks? I had all those things, too. I had, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 kids in college. 2 of them going to graduate school. I mean, it was crazy. But you know what? What a gift it all was, But you can do it. I mean, you can truly do it. But we're going to have that pushback. What do you say to those people, Josh?
Well, the reason they're pushing back is because the job doesn't work. See, I get this all the time. I was checking into a hotel once, and the guy who was checking me in actually saw me on television earlier that day, and he says, hey, you're the guy on TV who talks about entrepreneurship. I said, yes, that's true. He said, oh, man, I could never do that. That's too risky. And I said, yeah, 8 out of 10 businesses fail, so it's only a 20% success rate, but 98% of employees are dead or broke by their 65th birthday. So I'm already ahead of you. Good luck. See, we have this idea that employment Mike, that employment is the safe place to be. Employment's the secure place to be. No, it is not. Ask the GE employees this week if they feel safe. Ask the steel workers getting laid off if they feel safe. When you are an employee, your future is out of your hands completely. And it's not even a situation where you can say, well, I trust God. No, you didn't. You're trusting your boss, not God. Because if you trusted God, he would have been your business partner, and you wouldn't have said something so silly as, I could never do it. Because I thought you read the book that said you could do all things through Christ who strengthens you. So, isn't that funny? I thought you read the book that said God is a light into your path or your footsteps. Isn't that funny? So in Christianity, we have a tendency to lie to ourselves and say that employment is the safe place, entrepreneurship's the risky place. And the reality is it's the exact opposite. It's the exact opposite. Even in the terms of learning from your failures. If you take, let's say, Bob, and Bob gets fired from his job at a manufacturing plant. He goes and applies for his next job. He has to put that on the resume. So now it looks, oh man, Bob failed over there. Now his next job is probably going to be lower, not better. It's going to be lower. So now if he gets fired from that job, his next job is lower yet. And failure breeds more failure. That's the problem. The reality is that in entrepreneurship, you get to go the other direction. If you fail in your first business, you're more likely to succeed in your next one. If you fail in 2 businesses, you're even more likely to succeed in your next one. And there are billionaire investors who will not even invest in your business until you failed in a couple before, because they see that that's what actually grows success. Where an entrepreneur or in employment, failure leads to a degrading lifestyle.
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, it's funny how people think that entrepreneurs, they don't fail. Because I failed a bunch of times, folks. I mean, I got to tell you, I mean, I fell flat on my face several times. But you know what? The difference between me and some of the other guys, I got back up, and I said, wow, I won't do that again, And the same things happen with Hear the Watchman. Yep. I mean, I have stepped on a couple of landmines doing Hear the Watchman. Okay, fine. Oh, that didn't work. Now, what am I going to do? I'm going to sit there and cry and say, I'm never going to do Hear the Watchman again. No, I'm just going to learn from those mistakes and I'm going to move forward, which is what you need to do with your job and your finances and your income. Now, Josh, I mean, there's this funny phenomena, as I said earlier, where, as Christians, we can talk about all this stuff. I mean, all this like alien stuff and giants and Armageddon and the apocalypse and the tribulation, pre-trib, post-trib. We can fight about it and all that. But if you want to shut a room up in a Christian church, all you have to do is say, let's talk about money. Why is that?
A lot of it is, so there's a few factors. First, churches in America have largely become just emotional hospitals. They're really not churches at all. They're just emotional hospitals where hurt people kind of go and feel safe. I tell people all the time that today's modern church is really just a safe place for conservatives. We kind of make fun of snowflakes on college campuses, that they need a nice little room with puppies and a TV and a couch. Well, the same thing is true with most conservatives. We just call those safe places churches, where they go and, they have a wonderful coffee bar, and they have a prayer room with nice couches. It's a safe place for conservatives. So most churches aren't even really churches. So that's problem number one. Problem number two is we've abdicated that role. See, what's really interesting in entrepreneurship is God wants it in your faith. He wants it. And the other societies out there, the other cultures out there get it. They know it. A dollar spent in the Muslim community goes hand to hand in that community 14 to 16 times before it leaves that community and goes into general American population. A dollar spent in the Jewish community is 10 to 12 times inside that community before it leaves that community and goes into American population. That's why both of these groups, with a small percentage of the population in any given location, say they have 3 to 4%, they can control the city with 3 to 4%. And hats off to them, honestly. I mean, hey, they took what God said to do because we weren't doing it and did it anyway. The average Christian dollar, zero. Zero. We don't purposely spend money with each other. Instead, Christians will say stupid things like, well, they're having a sale on grapes at Walmart. I'm going to go to Walmart. Whereas the Muslim or the Jew says, hey, you know what? If my cousin doesn't sell grapes, I'm not buying them. And if there's no place to buy grapes in our community, we're going to have our friend start a store that sells them, and everybody in the community is going to buy grapes from him. And that's how they get powerful. That's what happened with the Hebrew slaves when they left Egypt. It blows my mind. A lot of these Christians are like, oh, money's not important. God doesn't care about money. What did God tell the Hebrew slaves when they left Egypt? Did he say, oh, money's not important, so leave your money behind? No. He said, take yours and theirs too. Loot this place. And then for 40 years out in the wilderness, they're actually engaging in entrepreneurial trade with the other people around them. So God used entrepreneurship even when they were in dispersion. And when we look at the American Christian system, we see the exact opposite. And we don't understand that it's killing us. Worse yet, not only are we taking God's fuel for freedom away from our churches, but we're doing something worse with it, Mike. When we say, well, America is going to hell in a handbasket. This is terrible. They're out to persecute Christians. Then they go on Amazon to buy their products because there's free Prime shipping, not realizing that Jeff Bezos is using your money, Christians, to destroy you. This would be like all the Hebrew slaves buying stuff from Pharaoh so Pharaoh could afford more weapons to keep them enslaved. It's a guy who literally has said we got to destroy this culture, yet we're the ones giving him money? Really? I mean, it's just sick and twisted.
It is. It's really interesting, Josh, because as you know, you came up to the Boise, Idaho conference that we did, I believe. But Jeannie and I live way up in the mountains of Idaho in a little town here. And the rule of thumb in our town is this. You will go first to all the little independent stores, and you will look at those independent stores to see if you can find what you need. Second, you go out to the Amish store, and you shop the Amish store and see if they have maybe something there that you need. You can't find them in those two. Okay, now you can go to the big grocery store in town and look there. You can go to when you need feed or supplies for your property, fencing, barbed wire, whatever. First, you go around to all the little local guys that sell that piecemeal. If you can't find it there, last-ditch resort, you go to the Murdochs in town, which is a big chain, which is a feed and supply store. That's the way we operate. And the reason we operate that way up here is because the very survival of our town requires that we exchange those dollars here within the town, rather than give them to the big guy. Because you know what? When you give them to the big guys, we don't have any big guys in our town. The nearest Walmart is 2.5 or 3 hours away. But if you give it to the big, like say the Murdochs, if you give it to them, they don't spend the money back here in the community. That money goes.
Right.
See you later. Right. Bye-bye. Gone. So it's important when we talk about the stewardship of money, we can't just be thinking about ourselves. It's about the community around us and our Christian brothers and sisters around us. That's what's truly important. Josh, I want to thank you for joining us today. We're reaching the limit of our time. Tell us, how do people connect with you who might have heard this that want your help?
Well, they can go to purplemonkeygarage.com. They can definitely go there. And Mike, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. We're thinking about filming a new series based on this sort of stuff. We're so good at fixing businesses that we're putting together a series based on it. And we're looking for a handful of businesses. And this is seriously the first place I've announced it. So, but we're looking for a handful of businesses that might have 2 to 10 employees. That sort of, small business, not necessarily brand new startup, but new. And we want to help those businesses. And we're doing this program where if they become a client, we help them fix their business. And if we can't fix the business, we buy it.
Wow.
And it's going to be this revolutionary sort of show, and it's just fun. So if any of the listeners are watching this and they say, hey man, I have a few employees, I have a business that could use some help, definitely check that out because they could be part of it. So that'd be kind of fun. And then JoshTolley.com and get the book of Entrepreneur. Just don't get it from Amazon. It is on Amazon. People hear me. People hear me talk about it all the time, this Amazon problem, and they're like, well, then why do you sell your book on Amazon? I don't. It's actually sold by the publisher, and this is what a lot of people don't understand, and I just want to prevent a lot of hate mail. The publisher owns the rights to the book, and Mike, you know how this works.
Yeah.
So since they own the rights to the book, they sell it wherever they want. I don't like it that they sell it there, so buy it from us if you can, or your local bookstore would be even better. But definitely get the book. JoshTolley.com, PurpleMonkeyGarage.com, and I'm going to see you at the Hear the Watchmen, I guess, coming up. So thank you, Mike.
And
always great to talk to you, bro.
That is right there, breaking news here on Money Mondays. To let you know, Josh Tolley will be in Dallas, Texas, at the next Hear the Watchman to be held there in March. I don't know the dates right now. I think it's early March, like the 3rd through the 5th or something like that. But we'll be announcing that shortly. But let me tell you, that is a different Hear the Watchman. Hear the Watchman 2020 is going to blow the roof off of things. It is not going to be your standard conference. People do conferences now every day. I mean, when we started out, Josh, you remember, there were like 3 conferences. Now there's like 3 conferences a week. So what God has laid upon us is go out and do something different. Equip my people. Don't just gather my people anymore. Equip them with the tools that they need. We call it the P3 initiative. It's called prayer, protection, and providing. And that's what we're going to be doing in 2020 is teaching people how to do that. And getting out there and getting our hands dirty, so to speak. So, listen, Josh, I want to thank you again for taking the time out of your day and you're away from your beautiful family to spend time with us here on Money Monday.
Oh, thank you, sir. Always a pleasure. God bless you, and God bless the audience as well.
God bless. So, hey, folks, that's going to wrap it up for this edition of Money Monday. Don't forget to tune in next Monday for another guest, and also don't forget that there is absolutely nothing that you can't do with Jesus in your heart, except nothing at all. Get up off that couch, get out there, make something happen for you, for your family, and for the body of Christ. We'll see you next time here on The Watchman's Report.